Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my Loki coverage. This is the episode 4 review. I've had a lot of fun doing these with you guys, and so let's keep this train going. Loki is a Marvel show that hits Disney Plus with a new episode every single Wednesday. And just like with the previous reviews for this show, first, little bit of this review will be non-spoiler things and kind of my overall impression of the episode, and then I'll dive into spoilers because at this point, the whole episode's a spoiler. Especially when you see episode 4, you're like, it's kind of hard to not talk about this stuff. A lot of this stuff is progressing very quickly, and so you kind of have to talk about it. So that's how I'm structuring this out, just in case if you don't want to be spoiled with some of the goodies. Okay, so in episode 3, we were left off with Loki and Sylvie on the Lamentus planet, and it was basically going to be wiped from existence. Colliding with another planet or asteroid or whatever was going to wipe out that planet. They were on it. Their time pad was busted. They could not get back, so they just accepted their fate. And at the very beginning, the TVA can still see the timeline, and so they see it kind of verge off a little bit, and so they're like, Mobius is like, oh, that's where they're at. So they snatch up Loki and Sylvie, and they interrogate them, and keep a watchful eye on them just because they keep escaping. And so at this point, since Sylvie told Loki in the previous episode that all the people at the TVA are variants, Loki uses that to his advantage. And he tells everyone. Tells Mobius. I think B-52 hears it at some point. Because she also was enchanted by Sylvie, so she had her memories kind of flood back up. So putting that doubt, that seed of doubt in the TVA is basically the whole episode. And so everyone starts doubting their existence, and now we see the cracks starting to form in the TVA. Hasn't crumbled yet, but we're seeing the cracks. And that's what's cool about it, because at the end of this thing, Loki and Sylvie, or vice versa, either or, whatever, whoever survives and whoever dies at the end of this thing, someone's going to take the TVA down, and now we're starting to see the cracks. So that's basically the whole episode. Before I get into some of the spoilery stuff, I like it. It's definitely ramping up the mystery a little quicker than I thought it would, especially with like some of the reveals that happened towards the end of this thing. I thought they were going to cut it at a certain point, and I'd be like, "Damn you, Disney!" But no, I thought this episode, like I said, was moving at 1,000 miles per hour. We get a little bit more of. Let me pull up the castles here. Gugu and Batha Ra's character, Ravana. We get a little bit more of her. And Wamni Masaku as B-15. We get a little bit more of her as well. So it's nice to see the kind of ensemble cast. Other people kind of have their turn and their spotlight in the episode. And of course, Tom Hiddleston, Owen Wilson. They're all fantastic. I love Owen Wilson's acting in this episode in particular, because this is where he has those seeds of doubt of like, oh, was I a different person? And so you get to see kind of that switch in the character where he might be helping Loki at this point, because his whole life is a sham, or what he thinks of it. So yeah, and then Sophia Di Martino is great as Sylvie. I love that dynamic between her and Tom. Yeah, I just thought this one. In particular, we haven't gotten this one in a while, but there was a lot more players at play, giving a little bit more screen time, and it was just great to see the ensemble flourish instead of just Tom Hiddleston and Sophia Di Martino. But like I said, the whole thing is just kind of ramping up the mystery and just seeing the cracks in it. It's really fun to watch, and there's only 2 more left, so things are just going to get crazier from here. That's basically it. That's all I can talk about in the non-spoilery section. There's just that much to go over. So, this is your warning. I'm going into spoilers in 3, 2, 1. This is just a fun one. This is not anything that's, that's really important to the overall story. It's just kind of like a fun gag. So, when Mobius gets Loki and brings him back to the TVA, he throws him in a time loop, kind of like his own little prison. And he's sent back to a place in Asgard. And you're like, okay, what is Loki doing here? Lady Sif actually comes out, and she has like a wad of hair, and it looks like Loki cut her hair. And so she's like, you know, you're so stupid, I hate you, and like she punches him, and like you're always gonna be alone, and she leaves the room, and then she comes back and does it again. So it's like his own personal hell. So that was fun to see. That was just kind of like a fun little cameo. But God, what's the Jamie Alexander? She reprises her role as Sif, and so that was just fun to see. Okay, so at the very end of the episode, well, actually at the beginning of the episode, I forgot to mention this in the non-spoiler section, but I don't need to because it's just fun to witness it for the first time. Ravana, she goes up to the timekeepers. Like, she goes upstairs to the boss, and she goes through the elevator doors, and she sees the 6 eyeballs, so to speak. So you see 3, sets of eyeballs in the shadows kind of staring at her, and she's talking to the timekeepers. First of all, creepy image, loved it. So I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. We're finally getting some sort of glimpse of them, right? And so at the end of the episode, I didn't think they were going to show us again, but at the end of the episode, Ravana brings Loki and Sylvie to the timekeepers because the timekeepers want to see them personally get pruned because they're sadistic. Yeah, so they get up to the timekeepers at the very end, and there's something off about them. So when you look at them, they kind of look like character designs and animation style of like creatures from the Phantom Menace. Like, it looked pretty bad, and I was like, hold on, these are not the timekeepers. You did not just reveal 3 of the biggest overlords of this entire series to make them look like that. I was like, nah, I'm not buying this. And honestly, I thought they were going to cut it to black and go to credits as soon as Sylvie and Loki walked up and you saw their faces, and it just goes. But it keeps going. So they have a talk. Sylvie's like, you guys are scared, blah, 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 just trying to really kind of catch them off guard, right? They can't really do anything because they got the neck things on them to where, people can control them and loop them back in time. But earlier in the episode, B-15 actually pulls Sylvie aside, and she's like, when you enchanted me, I saw something in my head, memories. I was happy. And she was like, I don't create memories, I just use what's already there. So now B-15 is starting to realize that, the whole like, oh, you're a variant working at the TVA thing is absolutely true. So she actually comes through at the last second in the timekeeper's kind of throne room, and she unlocks the neck rings or the neck braces or whatever on Loki and Sylvie, so they fall off. So now they're free to do whatever. So now they fight all the guards. Sylvie's like, I've had enough of the timekeeper. She throws her weapon, chops one of the timekeeper's heads off. It rolls down, and we see that it's an animatronic. Duh, it looked a little off and weird. I was like, there's no way this is real. So now she's like, what the hell? I spent all my time doing this and only to get to these fake looking robots, like, so where are the timekeepers? Who's doing all this? So that mystery is still there. They didn't answer that. And so they feel kind of satisfied or whatever. Loki's like, Sylvie, when we were on Lamentis, he's like giving a little spiel. I think he's basically telling her like, he kind of likes her. Or maybe something else, I don't really know. But before Loki gets out any of his words, Ravana prunes him. So Loki goes. And at this point, Mobius also goes, because when Mobius is catching on to Ravana, because he actually snatches her like little recorder to see what's her name, Hunter C20, played by Sasha Lane. Whenever he kind of looks into that and he sees that she is being interrogated and is like, hey, we're variants, like, what are you doing? And then Ravana is like, nope, none of that. And so she's actually keeping all these secrets hidden from everyone, which is super weird. It's like, if you're a variant as well, wouldn't you want to know the truth? I don't know. Maybe something's up with her. But, yeah, anyways, so she prunes Mobius. he was gone like right before the whole timekeeper, faux timekeeper situation. So he's gone. Loki gets pruned. Then Sylvie holds up the prune stick. Is that what it's called? The prune boom? Let's call it that. The prune boom to Ravonna's face, and she's like, "You need to tell me everything." Episode ends. So I was like, "Oh, come on! I gotta wait another week for this." Little in credit scene. Loki wakes up and he's like, "Am I in hell? Am I dead?" He wakes up and there's voices going. I forgot what they said, but it's a bunch of Lokis that are staring at him. So it looks like when you get pruned, you get shot off onto this random location. So that's the end credit scene. That's where it ends. So many questions. So who are the timekeepers now? What's actually going on? Who's pulling the strings? Who is the puppet master behind all of this? I must know. And the other question is it Loki and Sylvie that bust open the multiverse? Because this show has to be leading up to the craziness that Doctor Strange, Spider-Man No Way Home, and the end credit scene of WandaVision. This has to play into it. Has to. Like, they're going to take it down. They're going to take TVA down. I'm just wondering how they're going to do it. They got 2 episodes left. Who's behind all this? Where did Mobius go? Did he go to the same place as the Lokis? I love it. It's just, I love the mystery. I still have no clue. I can't pinpoint it. Even with all this stuff that's revealed in this episode, I still have no clue as to where this thing is going. And that's super exciting. So, yeah, really fun episode. Love seeing all the facade of the TVA start to crumble a little bit. I knew that was going to happen. They're going to ultimately take that place down. So that's going to also be satisfying because I have a feeling, I've said this from the get-go, there's something off with the TVA. Now we know all the people that work there have been kidnapped. They're variants. But the other question is, who's running this thing? And what are their motives? Are they trying to control time? Are they not really the timekeepers? Did they kill the timekeepers a long time ago and they've kind of inserted themselves as the head of the TVA? Like, I don't know. It's great. It's fantastic. My head hurts just thinking about all of it, but really fun episode. Flew by just like that because it just kept getting weirder and just crazier. People revealing stuff, people catching on, and just started ramping up. And then once it ramps up, it cuts. And that's how television works, folks. Gotta love those cliffhangers. Yeah, really like this episode quite a bit. So different from episode 3. I think if you watched episode 3 and you were a little disappointed, I think people will be back on board with 4. I think that's more in line of what episode 2 was. It's just kind of amped up to an 11, and there's just so many questions that they have to be answered by the end of the series. But they could leave it open for who knows at this point. I don't know. Marvel's crazy. They can do whatever they want. So, what did you think of episode 4 of Loki? Let me know down below whether you loved it, you hated it, if you're liking what you're seeing so far. Do you have any guesses as to what's going to happen at the end of all this? Like, who's actually in charge of the TVA? What do the timekeepers look like? All that stuff. Let me know down below. But that will do it for this review of Loki. And then next week will be episode 5. Super excited to keep diving into it. So until then, I will see you guys later.